going to be able to quantify whether there's more.
That's Tel Aviv.
It's a very nice city, I'm not going to lie.
It's not hardly a desert place.
You're not going to be able to quantify whether there's more racism in Tel Aviv.
No, but that ain't even my point. This
Took
is
it
my
from the air
point.
on EasyJet.
To prove my point, I'm willing to concede, okay, fine, it's no more than anywhere else, but there's still an acceptance of it there. Content over everything! Because the quality, it might be the same. Look, if we're talking about amount, fine. I don't even believe it, but I'm willing to concede, fine, there's the same amount of racism in Tel Aviv than there is London. But my point is different. There's a qualitative difference in the racism in London when compared to Tel Aviv. Because, let me just finish, bro. I beg you, let me just finish. Because the racism in Israel, whether less or more doesn't matter, because the racism in Israel contributes to policy there. That's the issue.
That's the same here.
No, it doesn't.
In this country.
Bro,
Talking about,
let me remind you,
have the hostile environment, you have the wind rushing.
I don't want to come back to this, man. We shook hands and said we're going to
There is the same in this country.
Why? Let me tell you why.
People are prejudiced against because of the colour of their skin,
Bro,
what they believe in,
come on,
their
man.
views and everything. They can get jobs or not get jobs based on
to the
it.
Caribbean.
But we think we're stupid here.
Who are
We don't know that
British
goes
citizens. The colour of their skin.
I'll address all of that. That's true.
This is a former empire nation, believe it or not.
Well, if you allow me to address it, I swear my mom's life, I'll address every point there, yeah?
Go.
Now, you telling me that certain Windrush people were affected, it's still confirming the fact that there's racism here and there.
Yeah.
And I already agreed. Right. Yeah, fine. But my point is that there's a look, the fact that everyone in Israel has to do 3 years of military service.
We went through that point a minute ago, didn't we? We've gone through that.
What's that got to do with
It's to
racism?
do with defence for the nation.
Well, let them finish.
Alright,
Do you
fine,
think I'm not going to explain?
you're right.
Do you think I'm just going to say
Yeah,
Britain had national service up to the
Karen.
1960s.
National service.
My father did
The
national
last
service.
time there was national
National
service
service.
in the UK was 100 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
It was 50 years ago. But
It
anyway,
ended in the
come on.
1960s.
It's 50. Whatever. Go on. Make your point.
No,
In
you
the
lot are
1960s it ended, by
you
the
lot are
way,
hotting me
anyway.
up on camera because you're not giving me any time.
Sorry, Raymond.
You're not
I
giving
give you time.
Let him say his point. You're not giving me any time to qualify my points.
Take all the time you want.
When was conscription ended in the UK?
I'll check it about. I think it's the 1960s. I'll check.
1916.
60s. 60.
Google it.
50 years ago.
The Conscription Act was oh man.
National service was in the 1950s.
Sorry, can I just intervene? Sorry, can I put something on camera just for a second, please? My father was doing national service in 1951. How could that have happened? then?
Compulsory.
Yes,
they went to
compulsory.
Korea.
Every man had to go
Yes.
do 3 years.
Yes.
3 years, whatever it was.
Do you want me to just prove this now or not?
I think you're talking about wartime or post-war. You're not talking about
No,
throughout,
you're not
man.
listening to me. I'm talking about national service.
Israel with the
Right.
national
So
service.
the point is that in Israel, you say that the racism is the same, but the reason I
End
say
of national service.
oh now it's not
Fine.
the same. Well, you need a consistent level
It's
of.
just similar.
No, national service.
See, and that's the exact year I said as well. But anyway, let me just.
We're not talking about the war yet. We're talking about
Okay,
national service in the 1960s, I think, or 1950. My father did it in 1951. It was compulsory to be.
Okay, fine.
I know.
Right. Okay, I might be wrong about
That was the
that.
act.
It's not.
But
It's not.
so, but
That's what
I
we
mean,
need.
in any case, it's in the past. The past comparison with present-day Israel is just useless. So let's stick to what actually happens now.
last day
Now,
of
if you have a
national
country
service
where there's
in the
racist
UK.
tendencies, in society and in culture, that's an issue. Now, if you go to a country which is practically an ethno-state, first of all, that's the first point. Hold on, I know you hate that word. First of all, it's practically an ethno-state. Secondly, there's mechanisms
talking about
within the
something
state which,
The conscription,
in my opinion, enforce or solidify
because the war was already
that
2 years
nationalistic trend of racism, because
They're talking about
in
national
some ways
service.
it
They're talking about
instills
everybody
and,
here over the age of
really
18 had to go into the army
permeates
here. And
through 3 years of military service. And this isn't just a general military service of you're going to learn how to defend the country. This is a specific type of military defense
There we are.
against. Hold on, let me just finish the
I got
point.
the answer.
In order,
I was
this is a
right.
specific type
I
of
was
military
right.
service to defend the country against Palestinians. And so, if there is a connection between the national mood of racism towards Palestinians and Arabs in general, and then in the 3-year military service, there is a direct training of we're going to fight against the Arabs and the Palestinians. Are you telling me that's not qualitatively different type of racism than here. Here, racism might exist, but it's amorphous and aimless. People are racist against everything and everyone. In Israel, racism is particularly towards non-Jews and particularly
the last day of national
Palestinians.
service, the last day.
Prove me wrong.
No, I'm telling him. No, I haven't moved on.
1960.
17th of November 1960 for educational purposes was the 1960.
I apologise. I was wrong.
3 weeks after I was born. By the way.
So how long ago is that? That's about
50 years.
almost 60 years ago.
100 years.
Let's stick to present day.
The 1960
Right.
you're talking, 16 you're talking about is the First World War. That's what you're talking about.
What do you think, Raven? Do you think that's true? You think that
The 1960
racism,
was
while it
worse.
exists everywhere,
You made a few
qualitatively
points.
it
You made a
takes
few
different
points.
forms because
Sure it does.
there's
Sure it
things that the
does.
people have to do that
No,
will make
let
it
me
even
respond now.
worse.
Let me respond.
Well, there seems to be a
Let me
dynamic
respond
when
to
it comes to
your
racism
points.
from what I'm seeing.
Say that again?
There always seems to be a dynamic from what I'm seeing, right?
There's always
I'm seeing that's quite consistent. When you say there's racism everywhere in France, Jerusalem,
Oh, you're saying it always takes.
it always takes form, as in people of European descent seem to be at the top of the ladder, while everyone else seems to trickle down.
Right, but do you really see?
That's the different. That's not what we
Even
were
though-
talking about.
No, that's what I see. So,
that's
so
fair
in
enough.
that
That's
sense, it's similar.
No, disagree
This
with
guy
it.
will
of
always
course.
make that point.
Oh, of course, 'cause that's the
Straight
point to be
up.
No
made.
one's disagreeing
Fair
with
enough.
you.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this then.
No,
But,
yellow vest here.
I don't know I don't know how much the European thing plays into it, because even though so many in Israel are of European descent, a large majority are still like Hebrews, and those Hebrews hate Arabs.
When you say Hebrews, what do you mean?
Well, those who descend from the Middle East.
Or is that what you call
Why are
Hebrews?
they Hebrews? They all descend from the
Bro,
Middle
don't do that Kemet stuff to me. I don't
No,
get it.
I don't know. Because
Hebrew is a language, not a people.
Yeah. So.
No, you can be a Hebrew
Because there's different
Israelite.
identity.
An Israelite, not a Hebrew. Hebrew is the language.
No, people
It's a
are.
language.
Israelis are already now.
come on,
Ashkenazi Jews also descend from
Yeah.
the
So
No, but that's the
Ashkenazi.
European thing.
They also
Name
descend from
all the
But
Jew types.
once
Name all the
removed,
Jew types.
once removed, like very distant. I'm
It's a
talking
bit of a
about
naive
people who are.
view, so I think it's
How's
very
that relevant?
Because
I mean,
there's,
Jews
eth-
who-
there's
they're all descended from
because their time in Europe has meant there's been ethnic
what?
changes. So they're a separate ethnic group.
Yeah. Sephardic. How do you
Because so naturally they're a different
Ashkenazi
ethnic group.
Jews from Europe.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the one from Italy is called.
No,
They're
bro, I'm
Mizrahi
not trying to
Jews.
say.
They're
I'm not
Mizrahi
making that point you think I'm trying to make.
Well, it seems like you're making
But
it.
you have to understand that the Hebrews that have
I
direct.
don't know why I'm saying Hebrews. What do you mean?
Well, what word is?
Mizrahi Jews.
Say it again?
Jews who have most recently come from Arab countries. Mizrahi Jews. They're called Mizrahi Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you
Yeah,
have
that
then-
sounds.
There's an
then
ethnic
you have-
difference between them and Ashkenazi
Then you have
Jews. That's
Sephardi
what
Jews
you're saying.
from
That's what I'm
Spain
trying
and
to say,
North
yeah.
Africa.
In any case, my point is that so the Jews, the very diverse group of Jews in Israel, tend, while there is a sort of there's a power structure there which
Pretty
relates
much.
to Euro and non-Euro. Nevertheless, I see the greatest racism directed towards Arabs and Palestinians. There's a national racism.
Yeah, but
the
you agree
Israel's
with that,
versus
right?
the Palestinians
agree
or
that's
the
racism in all
Egyptians
directions.
or the
It's
Syrians.
racism in all directions. So
Yeah, but my point is that it doesn't matter if there's racism in all directions. My point there is that it's directed and targeted because of
against Arab
concrete, tangible things like military
Are you
service.
talking about Israeli society? Are you talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? What are you actually talking about?
What do you think I'm talking
discussing
about?
it? Well, I'm asking.
Israeli society, where everyone has to do
Israeli society.
mandatory
So you're
military
talking,
service.
So you're talking day-to-day life if people go to
Yes.
go work and school in Tel Aviv. and
You
other
didn't see that when you went there? Be honest.
I'm trying to make a point.
Because this is also anecdotal, but it's
I'm
backed.
trying to make a point. So
Sorry.
that's very, very different from what you're talking about, which is racism against the external Arab-Palestinian threat. What I think.
How is it different? How is it not connected? Israeli society and their racist.
Because they're different people. Do you have Arab Israelis who Israelis will interact with on a day-to-day basis? They go
Right.
to work and go to school, and then there are Palestinians who live in the West Bank who Israelis will never meet. So it's
There is a
totally
difference, but
different.
you're telling me there's not a connection
I
between
think
that.
what Raven is more interested in, what he was talking about, is internal Israeli society. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that respect, there's racism in all directions. In all directions, against Ashkenazi against Israeli Arabs, Ashkenazi against.
But my
Sephardi.
real point of interest is where racism is enforced by law, and that's what I was trying
Yeah,
to.
but it's not really.
Well, that's what I was trying to unpack.
It's
This.
not right.
Well, this is why I'm trying to research and find out more about the selling of land and how you cannot sell land. To
I don't know
people.
about that, but
It was mentioned
there's
on.
equality under the law.
It was mentioned on CNN. A guy from CNN.
I don't know.
I didn't know about it.
I don't know.
Hence why I'm asking.
I don't know, but my understanding is, and when I say understanding, I know
You
it to be, I know it to be
So
true.
basically, you don't know.
Of this particular law, I've never heard of it, so I can't tell you if it's
Yeah.
true or not. But I would be very, very surprised. There's equality under the law.
But the reason why looking,
That's the reason.
sort of using the law to prove if this is true or not is a bit like not, it's not the greatest foundation to stand on, because these laws have been democratically passed in Israel, and if you can simply say, oh, this is a racist policy, then Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the people are racist. They didn't oppose this in any great way. You get me? Like, I mean, one thing that people can't deny is that Israel does have, you know, a relatively democratic parliamentary system. It might be skewed towards the interests of Israeli Jews. Man, if they pass a racist law, then they pass a racist law. There's not much I can do. What I can do is I can sort of argue against when people say, no, there's not more racism. There is more racism. And
Well,
I guess
racist laws is a bit of an issue, really. If the law you live in is backed up by the military force, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Where-
it's the Israeli state. And if they're going to pass things that favour Israelis over non-Israelis, I get it, you know. The same might be the same in China and anywhere. Like, national law tends to favour the
But
nationals.
you've brought this up, but you haven't presented any
You're very
evidence.
British.
Oh,
for
no,
saying that.
I've asked a question.
So we can't assume that it's true.
No, but we're talking
Right.
about what
So
if
I'm gonna
scenario.
assume that it's not true.
Yeah,
And
but we're discussing a what if scenario, right? Because
Yeah, of course. A racist system law like you had in South Africa is a totally different scenario.
It's a good analogy to South Africa.
No, it's not. It's a terrible analogy. It's a terrible analogy. If you know
South
anything
Africa
about
often
apartheid-
gets compared.
If you know anything about apartheid South
No,
Africa, you'll understand it's a totally ridiculous.
in your book,
it's
what
totally
is the
It's an analogy,
What do you
that's
like most about Israel? What do you think
What
is
I like about
like most, and what do you like least?
I don't like all.
So in
I'm
regards
not
to
Israeli.
You're not a defender.
but you're still.
I like most about
You said you've
Nice
been there.
beaches. I
So
don't
you
know
lived.
what you
You said you lived there for.
Yeah, 5 months, yeah.
The context is race relations, right?
Sure.
Because you guys were talking about. I was
Sure.
talking about,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you went there, what did you think was best about race relations, and what did you
Best
think?
about race relations?
Or what do you think needs to be improved?
I don't know. I'm not the right person to really talk about race.
But you
relations.
lived with
Yeah,
for 5 months.
So like the ideal of Israeli society is actually quite interesting. The ideal of Israeli society is that they're all Jews, right? It's a place for all Jewish people to come, whether you're Mizrahi, whether you're Ashkenazi, whether you're from New York or
What about Hebrew Jews? What about the Hebrew Jews from America? So have you heard of them?
like the.
Oh, you're talking about black Hebrews?
Yeah, the Hebrew Israelites.
Why don't you just
Hebrew
say
Israelites.
that? Why don't you
I
just
don't
say
know. I don't think they.
But they call
I don't
themselves
think they're
Hebrew Israelites.
considered Jews.
Other people call them black Hebrew Israelites.
They call themselves black
I don't
people.
think they're
I know them as Hebrew Israelites.
They're not considered Jews.
Okay, well, so what would they need to do to be considered Jews?
Descend from the tribe of Israel, isn't it?
No.
Isn't that what
No.
constitutes being a Jew,
So
a
it's-
Hebrew, or Israelite?
so when you
have to come from the creed of Abraham.
So different people will have different answers to that question. I take a very
all
broad
bullshit,
view.
let's
That
be
if,
honest.
if you self-identify as a Jew, then I would accept you as a Jew.
So but they do
I
that,
think-
right? They identify as
I mean, I don't
being
know
from the
exactly.
lineage of
Yeah, but they don't follow Judaism.
But you have to be-
They, for example, accept Jesus, right?
This is deep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
But
would
is there
negate
not
their
is there not a
Jewishness.
movement called Jews for Jesus in Israel?
Yeah, but they would
Well, how
be-
comes they that?
No, so those people who are Jewish who then become Christian. If you believe in Jesus as your Lord and Savior, then you're a Christian. You might also be a Jew.
So if you're a Jewish person and then you decide you want to convert to Christianity,
Yeah.
do
You're still Jewish.
Okay, so why can't the Hebrews then? If
They could be. I don't know enough about their belief. I know they're not accepted.
Isn't
But
Jew?
they don't describe themselves as Jews either. They
well,
describe themselves as something quite separate.
I think they describe themselves as like the original Jews.
Sure. They don't follow Judaism. I think they're
Because I think we're using the Jew a bit loosely here. I mean, there's an ethnic, there's the ethnic use of the term, and there's the religious use of the term.
It's best for them. Yeah, it's best for them to
The two are
describe
connected.
themselves. I
Yeah,
could.
but the two are connected.
Yeah, but come on, for the sake of debate, you have to carefully use one and the other.
No, there are
You get-
two ways to be a Jew, and both ways mean you're 100%.
You're
Yeah,
a Jew,
but
right?
we're making a specific
How
point
do you
about
become a
what
Jew?
these ones
Because my
are.
mother's a Jew.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have to be traditionally to be a Jew. It has to pass maternally.
There are two ways.
Otherwise,
No.
otherwise
There are
you're a
two-
convert.
Yeah, you're a convert. There are two ways. You
Okay,
can either convert
and
or
the
your mother
latter,
is Jewish.
the latter may not be accepted in certain sects.
By certain people, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And in Israel, let's be honest, there is a sort of a claim to genuine, authentic Judaism.
Yeah. No, what
Right.
do you mean? What do you mean? By who?
Certain people
Not
in
only
Israel,
Israel.
we're the true Jews. This has
People
been
outside
said.
Israel think the same. What do you?
No, but my point is, like, he made if these lot from New York or something came and like, I'm a Jew,
Yeah.
they'd be like, well, you're not. Why would they say that? Because they believe that there's a genuine Jew.
Of course there is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course they do. Yeah.
But what I understand is
It's a binary thing. Either you're Jewish or you're not. Some people are. Some
But you
people
said no, but you're cool because you said, oh, I'll accept you, whatever.
Yeah.
But they won't, and we're talking about Israeli
aren't.
society,
Some
not
people
you.
won't. No,
You get me?
you're talking about all Israelis, some Jews who live in Israel.
Israeli
My
government,
point is that
Israeli passport. You couldn't just I couldn't just self-identify as Jewish and say, can I have my passport now?
They would ask you either how you converted, or they would ask you if your mother is Jewish.
But you said
And
I
they'd
can
ask
I
you
can
for
claim
it.
asylum as a non-Jew.
Yeah, well, you.
So I can get Israeli nationality.
You're from Britain, so you're
So
not,
why wouldn't I be able to?
You're not fleeing any persecution.
Well, why can't I apply for dual citizenship, for example?
Well, so what? Fleeing persecution can get you.
Let's be honest, they don't give Israeli nationality to hardly anyone but Jews.
If you're African American and
Right.
you feel that you're under threat from like the police state and that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't think Britain would grant.
No, I'm talking about America. I'm talking about the.
No, I'm saying Britain would grant someone from America, a black person from America.
Yeah, but then
asylum.
they claim to be of the original Jews, right? So.
No, but he's talking about something else. He's talking about political asylum for non-Jews.
Oh, fair.
Well, okay, I'll extend it to any sort of application for citizenship.
Yeah, it's very difficult in Israel,
Thank you,
and I
yeah.
personally would like it to be easy.
Now, do you think that
It's
there's
also very difficult in Japan, by the way.
Yeah,
very
because
good.
Japan's an ethno state.
South Korea as
I'm with
well.
you. And
Almost
South
impossible.
Korea is an ethno state,
I don't think
yeah.
it's- I wouldn't
Just like
describe it.
Israel, yeah, you're
I
proving my
wouldn't- I
point.
wouldn't describe it as
No, but what he's saying is kind of true because I get, like, this is the thing, that's why I don't want to stick too close to the law. If we look at the acts, the trends, and the general culture
Yeah.
of a country, you can make, general conclusions about what they think about other people. So if a country is just not willing to let other types of people in, what does that say about the country? Combined with let's be honest, I mean, Israeli leaders have no shortage of racist remarks on record towards Arabs.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, damn right, look good, and they're in power, bro. You get me?
Yeah, they are.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know what I'm saying, and so forget the
And
law
Sarkozy
thing.
said he wanted to hose the scum off the streets.
Bro, but I am no
Happens
friend of
everywhere.
France as well.
Okay.
You get me? So,
And in this country, we have the hostile environment, and we have the Windrush scandal. We have
but yes.
a litany of racist
Look,
acts.
there's no doubt about it. But
From the state.
we can take a case study of any country and we can look at the trends in their exclusive manifestations of racism. Here, there's a particular connection between, the native British and historically people of Caribbean or Asian descent because of the colonial immigration policies. You get me? Yeah. Obviously, we can make a point that racism is everywhere, but in places it takes different forms. Now, my whole point was that in Israel, it takes the form of a very, I think an easily identifiable and observable anti-Arab or anti-Palestinian nature, and it's enforced and institutionalized through a fucking mandatory military conscription for men and women.
I don't know why you're so hung up on military service.
Because-
Israel has military service because it's constantly under threat and it has to fight wars every so often.
No, look.
What's wrong with
I'm not
military
making
service?
it.
Switzerland has military service.
Try to listen to
Germany has military
try
service.
to listen to what I'm saying a bit more carefully because no offense, I'm not making a point against military conscription. My point is that doesn't it help to. Do you want me to repeat everything I just said for the sake of
No, I
clarity?
understand what you're saying, but that's only a side point. That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to defend the country.
Fine, it's a side point.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
You could say the same thing about school.
Yeah, but are you missing? Am I making myself unclear or something? My point is that if every country has racist tendencies, then maybe, who would have thought that certain institutional practices would help to solidify those racist tendencies. So I would argue that in Britain, let's say we're in Britain in the 70s and there was a particular racist attitude towards Caribbeans or Asians, if there was military conscription against threats from Caribbean and Asian nations, that would help to solidify. Now, is that the case in Israel? 100%.
Yeah, that makes it worse.
And besides, I shouldn't even have to argue this rhetorically. I've just argued it rhetorically, and everyone can agree that if there's racist tendencies, then a military move would help to solidify that. But you don't even need that. You can go there, you can hear people outright say, dirty Arab.
But you know what?
Bro, I went there.
Interesting. I understand you mean
Man,
that.
I don't even have to prove this shit.
You know what's
man.
interesting though?
It's so sad when you have to
know
argue
what's-
for things that are so obvious.
I'm not arguing. I'm agreeing with you. But you know what's?
Thank you.
Do you know what's interesting is that a lot of Israelis who will live quite a sheltered life,
Fair enough.
growing up going to school,
Product of their own ignorance, I guess.
whatever. People live a sheltered
That's
life.
fair enough, man.
Well, put it this way,
They live a sheltered life and they get told constantly by society, the racism, Israelis, Arabs are this, Arabs are that, and then they join the army like they all do for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever
they
it
don't
is,
join.
and then they join the army.
Well, they're forced to join.
They're forced to join the army. They join the army and then they go off and they do military service and they see things which actually turn their minds back the other way. And they
That's
say-
a minority.
Sorry?
Sorry,
Of course it's
military
but it
conscription.
happens a lot. I've been there a lot. You've been to Israel, fine. I've spoken to a lot of people who have been in the Israeli army who have experienced things which have made them far, far more sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. Far more sympathetic. And that happens a lot.
But
and you can't discount that.
No, okay. I'll address that. Just sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But the thing is that there's a bit of, you can identify contradiction in what you're saying, because it's kind of hard to balance on the one hand saying, yeah, they're a minority, but there's a lot. I mean, come on, how considerable is this minority? Now, I'm with you. There is a growing liberal consensus in Israel that foreign policy, as it currently stands, is wrong. And I saw it. In fact, in the West Bank, many of the activists were Israeli, and I did not expect that. That was my own ignorance.
Why did you not expect it?
Oh, but look, the same way Israelis live sheltered lives, many of us Brits live sheltered lives, and we have a very black and white view. So when you go over there, you learn a lot.
I think a lot of people in this country,
there is a lot.
I think a lot of people in the West and outside of Israel are very ignorant of what happens in Israel.
Yes,
What the
yes.
society is really like. It's not a monolith. They don't all think the same.
I know, it's not black and white. There's always grey areas.
The left in Israel gets 40% of the vote. The political system in Israel is such that you have the right, which can control it with actually a very relatively
Right.
low amount.
We're going on to a different point.
No, but it's important.
Let me just finish the point.
They're on a very left liberal Israelis.
Right. Okay.
You don't
But the point is,
the way you're saying
but the
that
point
they
is,
can-
even though it's a growing minority, it's still a minority, and it's a very small one, man. And I'm sorry, I personally don't believe that. The amount of people that go into the military and come out with the perspective that Palestinians aren't that bad. That just isn't that big of a minority.
A lot do.
Man.
And
It might be
and
growing,
a lot-
but it still ain't that
and
big.
a lot of those racist views aren't enforced by the army. A lot of them,
But you haven't seen that much racism when you go there. That's right.
I've seen racism.
You haven't really
You
seen
must
that
have
much.
heard. There's a lot of casual racism there.
What does that mean?
You see,
What does that mean? You're one.
I don't see racism against me.
Well, obviously not against you. Well, what I'm saying, you
I
must
don't,
see.
I don't see black people getting beaten in the street in Israel.
No, but
what
that's
kind
an
of racism would
extreme
I see?
example.
Well, you told me you lived there for 5 months. And then when we're talking about racism, you go.
Well, I was a child, yeah.
You lived there for Ethiopia.
I was 14, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we
I
are.
didn't see a lot of racism. Not day to day.
okay, well, in London, do you see a lot of racism day to day?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I know it exists.
But you already.
I get told. Like,
Wait, hold on. Yeah. There's no denying that there's racism in all countries, like you said earlier. But in London, I don't think that casual racism. No, I was about to say it's not that common. It might be common. I don't see it. But my real point is that casual racism is certainly not as common as it is in Israel, and particularly the cosmopolitan centre of Tel Aviv.
Okay, well, I don't know
Casual
what
racism is so
I don't know
common,
what
bro.
you're-
So common.
How
You
many
saw
times
from your
have you been there?
experience,
How many
right?
times have you been there?
From your
I
experience,
ain't even been there that much, and it was so apparent.
How many collective days have you been in Israel?
Why?
Because I want to know the breadth of your experience.
But if I told you that it was a short time,
It's quite narrow.
it's
quite narrow. So you experienced some racism, but that doesn't mean that your experience was actually emblematic.
But have you heard of
both
racism
sides
in
of the
Israel?
It proves my
Yeah, of
point.
course.
So then, he doesn't have to say anything because you've heard of it, right?
Yeah, I've heard of racism here as well.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not, that's not
well,
the
and
question. There's racism in Israel. That's not the question. I've accepted
But my
But
argument.
my thing is the racism seems of a similar nature.
here and there.
Yeah, for me, the racism seems to be similar. See, so a lot of people make separation between Israeli Jews and European English people and British. And for me, I still see it as the same kind of train that comes from Europe, of the legacy of white supremacy. I still see that, the nature of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the area of interest
It's not only white people who can be racist.
I don't think he's saying that. He's saying it's a European
minority in Israel. They're in the minority.
tradition.
It's not only
Would you say tradition?
It's not only European tradition. I mean, if you look at
Actually, I don't even buy that.
At Korea, for example, and Japan, they also have a history of supremacy of their own race.
Well, but the difference is that's a different dynamic. That's like, you're talking about the Asian dynamic, right? I was talking about the European colonization dynamic.
Oh, you're saying Israel is influenced by the European
I
model?
would say that some of the racism I saw from the European Ashkenazi Jews was learnt in Europe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and it's very consistent. So I don't necessarily know what happens in Japan if it's similar.
I don't know.
I don't think their racism will be of the same nature. Might be. I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think it's a different kind of.
Maybe. But
Obviously.
the thing is that the Ashkenazi Jews who live in Israel now were Jews who came from Europe
Yeah,
and
it's a good
were
discussion with you.
persecuted as much as any people.
Sorry, I
have
didn't mean
been
to get.
Yeah, of course. But
I
then,
can tell I cut it off.
yeah, and that's
It
the
was
shocking
getting
part.
Those exact people.
Well, that's the shocking part of it.
So where would they have got that attitude from?
So, for example,
That colonial attitude, because when they were living in Europe, they didn't feel like a colonial
why
in
did
a
you-
colonial system. They
Well,
were
this is the
racist.
question-
They
why
were
did you-
upset, they
well, this is
were
the question I have to ask you then, isn't it? Like, why is it so similar? Listen, the thing is interesting, right?
Because in Poland, right?
Which was extremist.
So a lot of these Ashkenazi Jews came to Israel from Poland after the war. In Poland, in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, when Jews were at the very bottom of society, there weren't any black people at all.
No, there are votes for black people all over. But then what?
Not in early 20th century.
There was black people. Well, there's black people in Germany. Black people were persecuted in Germany because they were sterilized, weren't they?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
There wasn't an established large.
but there must be something that's happening where a narrative has been learned. Where people of African descent look at people of African descent a certain way. I'm trying to find what connects that, right? So you saw in Israel marching against African immigrants, right? You saw it. Sounds right? Okay, sounds. But the language that was used to describe, to discriminate, was similar kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like you learn behaviour.
But modern society definitely need more young white people growing up in Israel have seen and been exposed to the kind of narrative that white people would have seen in the US.
Yeah, so that's why I say that regardless if you're Ashkenazi Jew or you're a British person, even though I know that there's maybe some like DMV people, they might not accept Jewish people, but generally there is a similar. I think there was a actual plan for Jewish people to become white, like as an actual as in America. I think there's a book called How the Jews Became White. So as in, because you call yourself Jewish, right?
Well, there's not many Israelis.
But you just said you're white. There you go. So,
in a way, in a sense,
Palestinians.
oh yeah, don't get me wrong. There is a racist movement who doesn't want to see Jewish people. That's why, and I think the reason was they believe that you might have non-white blood in you, and that kind of. And also,
the thing is, I've heard you talk about Palestine before.
It's just a common
Personally
thing.
speaking,
But no one really has a perspective on China to
race as a
or some other like.
And that's fine.
I don't think
really exists.
I don't want to
Me
keep
personally,
white blood,
feeding
black
into
blood.
this.
that's why I talk about people. That's why it's something just like at a certain time Irish people, Jewish people, and maybe Italians who are registered as white politically, and then they earn the right to become.
For Jews it's different because Jews have a history of persecution going back thousands of years.
Yeah.
And even today,
Yes, but we know that when it comes to this white-black dynamic, we know historically there's always been Jewish people of different ethnicities, right? Even though you might see Jews as one ethnicity, there's different color grids and phenotypes, right? And that's where I guess the story starts.
sure. But I mean, as I said before, Jews have been persecuted at times as bad as any group has ever been persecuted.
No, but yes.
No, why not?
Yo, let's not get into a discussion about who got.
I think it's wrong to compare battle scars. Me personally.
By the way, I think it's really wrong to compare
battle scars.
scars.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. But you said something.
As
so
bad, I said as
yeah.
bad.
But
I
why
didn't say worse,
would say that
you're
you?
right,
Yeah, I would say that you after your persecution, you got Israel back. You got it either back or from French.
6 million men down, but yeah.
Yes, but then you want to compare that to the transatlantic slave trade, which is much more. And then you want to try to Leopold in Belgium.
We got Israel, but there was a price that was paid for that.
Yeah, but
6 million strong.
yeah, but then there's nothing that was given back to the. You were given reparations, and today.
I got reparations.
Well, if you go to Israel, you might be able to receive something.
No.
Israel receives reparations from Germany. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right.
And they deserve it, right?
My family escaped.
Okay, so what you're doing? We're talking about collective groups, right?
Right.
So you personally. Yeah, but we're talking about collective groups. So collectively, the victims of the African slave trade have received.
understood.
But collectively, Jewish people have received reparations, right? So it's a different dynamic.
Germany,
Yeah, it's different dynamic, right?
Sure.
So, like I said, it's wrong to compare battle scars.
Yeah.
But
We don't need persecution
but
for one
not that everyone are.
We don't need persecution for one other.
But there is no
We've got common
comparison
enemies.
to what the people of African descent has gone through the Arab slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade and neocolonialism.
We're not comparing.
Of course, and you shouldn't because you would.
It's different.
Because you would lose.
And
But what I'm saying is, because you would lose, and I wish you would win. I actually would.
You
I
said
wish.
you don't
No,
believe in comparing
no,
battle
but because you brought it up, right? And I said if you did bring it up,
said
you would
as
lose.
bad as.
On paper, you would lose. I'm saying on paper, you would lose. But you'll never see me bring up that. Like, guess what? We had 8 million died. You had 2 million. We'll do that, right? But you brought it up, and I said if you don't want to bring it up, you're going to lose because.
I mean, I disagree with Karen.
Well, I've just given you the facts, haven't I? I told you about your reparations.
You described a difference. I can also describe a difference.
The thing is, the Jewish people actually have retained the power structure, right?
I can also describe a difference, right?
Okay, go ahead.
So, for example, in the African slave trade, there was never a industrialized, on-purpose attempt to completely wipe
Annihilate.
out by death
Annihilate.
an entire group of people from.
Interesting.
Well, when the Germans went to Namibia, they did. That's what they did, right? They wiped them out. And then when if you want to talk about black people collectively, the Tasmanians were wiped out, right, by the Europeans. So what I'm saying is, black people, because obviously, as you've identified, the Jewish collective, there's different ethnic groups, right? And as I've said, the black collective, there's different ethnic groups, right? And maybe you're right. Maybe there is no biological connection, but within that black collective, there has been. You want to move on?
I do want to move on.
I've given you the facts. Okay, fair enough. Because I don't know any Jewish ethnic groups that's been wiped out. But I can tell you what ethnic groups that's been wiped out.
Ethnic groups?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how you define
Well,
it.
so has the Ashkenazi
The Jews
Jews
of Poland were wiped out.
So there's no more Jewish.
They went down from 3.3 million to 3,000.
But they're still
They
here.
were wiped out. No, they're not.
So can you show me the Tasmanian population?
Tasmania.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because they've been wiped out.
But
right?
can I challenge you on that, Ray?
Go ahead.
Now, because this is always dangerous. This is a race to the bottom. Who's
I
been
think it's
impressed
ridiculous.
most.
That's why I don't
honestly,
compare battle
think-
scars. But he
think-
mentioned it, and I just gave him the checkmate. Go
Oh,
ahead.
come on, you didn't have to get into it.
Well,
But
but because it's a wrong thing to bring up in a discussion, but there is actually facts.
Do you think it's a
can-
valuable thing to talk about? Because I don't.
yeah, I don't think it's valuable.
Me personally, you said it for a point, right? Yeah, you said it for a point
No,
about you said no people group that you know has ever been persecuted.
No, I didn't say
that. Did you not say
I
that?
said that Jews have been persecuted
More than anyone else?
No.
Oh,
I said Jews have
maybe
been
we'll
Just as
check-
much, I think.
I said Jews have been persecuted as bad as any group in history.
Right, yeah, and that's where I have to disagree.
And then you have to come in.
Yes.
But you didn't have to.
Well, here's what it is, right? It's because.
And maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Well,
what I was trying
you started the language, didn't you? I just,
Fine.
you know what I mean?
My point that I was trying to make is that Jews have been persecuted.
Yeah,
To a very large extent.
And if anyone disagrees with that, they haven't been living alone, right?
Well, a lot of people do
well,
disagree,
okay,
but
fair enough.
whatever.
Racist people. But what I'm saying is,
Well, yeah.
yeah. So we have that in common, and at no point would I ever try to undermine that reality.
Yeah.
And that's what you know. What?
Could I just clarify something that you said that I probably misunderstood?
Sure.
Go ahead.
But I think that you were saying at one point that there's racism in Israel and that they picked it up from being in Europe. Is
Yeah,
that
so
right? Is
there's
that
a
what
certain narrative of European racism that once you qualify that you register as white, then you can actually subscribe to, right? They call it white supremacy, and by being identified as white, you can subscribe to this reality. So I don't really separate Jewish people from European people in that sense. I still see you as one. But I understand that amongst the ethnic group, there is a slight division. So there might be BNP members who will never identify a European Jew as white.
Sorry, but I sort of. Forgive me.
I'm just giving one example.
Forgive me.
There's the
there's a lot of-
the Ku Klux Klan. They won't do
But
it.
there's a lot of racism against Jews. A lot of racism against Jews.
I sort of understand what you're saying.
But in Europe, in the UK.
Of course, yeah.
Right, yeah. And in America, where they shot them dead in Pittsburgh synagogue.
yeah.
Right.
I sort of understand what's being said because I think what you're suggesting is that with colonialism and slavery, white people were able to sort of say we've dominated that society, we are civilized, they are not civilized, we are somehow better than them. Is that your argument?
Yeah, the thing is, you said white society, right? And this gentleman who identifies as a Jew has identified as white. So even though there's a civil war and what whiteness means, at a certain point you can correlate on certain agreed narratives.
I don't consider
You
myself.
think
I
that's
consider myself quite
inbred
separate.
in people?
I consider myself to be quite separate.
I think that
We learn it, or do you think?
well, this is what we're talking about. Like, why is that at one point Jewish people might not be recognised as white, but when they are, they might be practicing similar kind of white supremacist narratives that other people
Right.
have done.
I don't
And
know.
that's the question.
I don't know, but it's really, really important to understand that Jews are a separate group within white Europeans.
Sure.
I agree. No,
Well, can I
Which is why we're a persecuted group.
Oh,
We're a oppressed group.
But yeah, of course. Yeah.
Can I make a point then?
Because a lot of people don't think that, right? A lot of people think
Let me know when I-
people think that Jews are just white and that's it, and they don't suffer persecution. A lot of people.
I think the thing is, if we really want to put things on a microscope, there are many different forms of persecution that many groups can go through, right?
Yeah, the way I experience racism is different from the way you experience racism.
Of course, 100%.
And the way you experience racism in Britain is far, far worse.
Yeah, because because to look at you,
because I'm white passing.
right there you go.
Right.
So it's a
Right.
very different dynamic, right?
But I've still been beaten up on the street because I'm Jewish. I've still, had to clear
this
up
country?
In this country, yeah, multiple times. I've still
Really?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
In London?
Yeah. In London and Leeds, yeah, absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Wait, just forgive me, but demos or something? Wait,
No. I was outside a pub in Camden Town. A group of neo-Nazis came up
How
to
did
me.
they know you were Jewish?
Eyebrows, darker skin, curly hair,
Darker
nose.
skin.
See, they must be really good, like because
There's a Jewish look, absolutely, 100%.
okay, you have the Jewish look, yeah.
I would have thought you were English.
Yeah.
I thought you were English.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well,
yeah,
you are
I
English,
thought you
mate,
were
aren't
English.
you?
I
You are.
can't
then
tell you
again,
how many times in
they're
Speaker's
racist.
Corner people would come up to me and say, "Where are you from?"
Yeah, because there's racists. There's a lot of racists.
And I
in
say, "I don't know, I'm
Speaker's
from Britain." They say, "Yeah, but are you?"
Yes, man. Look, bro. Do you know how many times I've heard dirty Jew here? Like if there is a commonly accepted racism in Speaker's Corner, it's against Jewish people. I have to be honest. Like it might like if we go with the whole power plus prejudice thing, they might not have no power, but nevertheless,
Do you know,
it's dirt.
I definitely say that Jewish people have some form of power.
Yeah. But can we not get into
Well,
this?
I disagree. I would say that when it comes to Israel, they're quite powerful. You don't think that? Oh, so I'm talking about collective, right? So you as an individual in England, this is why a different narrative. So you're talking about you being beat up in the street. That's a different thing. But we just said that Jews don't have collective power,
No,
right?
they do in Israel.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
That's what I said.
Did they actually make a
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
anti-Semitic comment when they? Did they make a anti-Semitic comment?
They did a Hitler salute in my face.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
Not great.
Right. So they looked at your nose and your eyebrows and they said Jew. Right, see, well, they're probably more trained than me. But
Well, yeah, they're anti-Semites.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, that's something that.
Yeah, but you know, obviously, you would be able to identify an anti-Semitic caricature. So,
Well, here's what it is.
like the Disturmer, like
The same people hate you for what we hate everyone else who's of a darker tone, right? And with them, they don't necessarily have to ask questions like, "Are you Jewish?" They go, "You're a monkey."
As I say, I don't experience racism the same way that you do.
No, of course. Yeah. And like I said, it is so wrong to do like for like, and you know what I mean. And it's only because you mentioned it, I had to just kind of check that.
But once you start unpicking it, it gets very
it's kind of
messy,
wrong
doesn't
to
it?
do,
Yeah.
to like for like, but also I think it's important that Jewish people understand the kind of racism that they experience and the kind of racism other people experience, and some people feel it's worse than others.
Even English people get racism sometimes. As an English white person, I get racism sometimes.
Yeah, how's that?
How is white racism?
Yeah,
Well,
how's that?
I was in Brixton one time, and I came out of McDonald's, and a black guy came to me and goes, "Mate, people are watching you around here. Like, I was just going out to my bike. Like, it's like, I said, well, what do you mean? Like, mate, this is a black area. Listen, if I'm in a white area, people are going to look at me suspiciously, So here, people look at you, and the black lady came up to me. She said to me, "Just move." And that was a little bit of racism that I experienced. I've had other stuff that's happened too.
So
being called white,
you're
stuff like that.
loitering?
But-
You're loitering? Is that right?
No, I was just outside McDonald's again. I'm on my bike. But who's this man who was attacking me there? This is
Loitering,
like some years ago.
What were you doing?
No, I just came out.
I don't know.
But even white people experience racism.
So you were outside McDonald's?
Yeah. I know. I just had some food, and I was just coming out.
And as you walked out, someone stopped you and said, "I'm watching you,
Yeah.
mate." Okay.
I don't know. And then some woman came on, but he just made a lot of racial stuff and said, "Look, this is a black area."
What was the racial stuff he said?
He said to me, "You're a white guy.
Yeah.
Your people are watching you. What are you doing around here? What
It
are you
doesn't
doing
matter
around
about
here?"
words, Ray. Remember, it doesn't
He
matter.
said,
It's
"You're a
about
white
how
guy." He
people
said,
act
"What are you
towards
doing?" He
you
said,
because of your race.
Yeah,
like-
but I want because what it is we want to get the
Because words
particulars.
don't mean anything.
Well,
Yeah.
And that's your quote.
Well, I don't remember saying that, but if I did, it sounds like a good one. What I'm saying is, it's the particulars, isn't it? Because sometimes people might be reacting to something else, right?
Well, I just came out of McDonald's. I've been in McDonald's having some food and just leaving, and then this
And
guy
you didn't
came up
feel
across to
welcome.
me.
You didn't feel welcome.
No,
because of
he
the
was
colour of
and
his
then,
skin.
and then some a black lady came up behind him, supporting him, saying, "Move." She's telling me, "Move."
that definitely
So I
happened.
just moved. I just moved.
Yeah, go on, Sam.
So I just left. I was going anyway, so I just left. Well, I've had bits of racism from
He
different
didn't shake
racial
hand,
groups.
huh?
So,
He did.
Racists.
talking about
Did he
racism.
refuse to shake hand?
He was in a rush to leave.
Oh, fair. That's cool. So, well, I don't know that scenario, but let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, I suppose.
Is that your list of racist things that's happened to you then?
No, I've had other stuff as well, but I mean, like, that's just one thing. But I spoke to.
Oh, he said, he's giving testimony now, isn't he?
Yeah. I spoke to a black friend of mine about it, like, and I said to him, like, this happened, blah, blah, and he said, "Man, there's no racism in Brixton, man." I said, "There is. I just had this happen," but it's like he didn't want to listen. And this friend of mine, like, he's not a guy who goes on about arguing. He never doesn't really. he never gets racial problems really.
So
Probably why he doesn't see
you're
them.
approached by an ignorant person on the street, yeah?
Yeah, just got some racial
Ignorant
abuse, and then some
racist.
woman came up and supported him.
were you-
And he said to me, listen, yeah, you're a white face in a black area. If I'm in a white area, people look at me suspiciously. People look at you, what are you doing? I said, mate, I'm just not going to
Was that statement correct though?
Well, I don't know, for him, he just wanted to say it. Whether it's true or not, I don't know.
The thing is, the gentleman's walked up and he says he's experienced racism.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's a racist thing.
And I've had other stuff as well. I've had people go to me, like push in front of you. When I've said something, some guy push in front of you. I said, what are you doing? And then we go into an argument. And and he was getting in my face. And I said, he's just pushing in the queue at McDonald's. I said, mate, what are you doing?
You know what?
And then he said to me, look, you fucking white pussy. You white pussy. And I said, mate, that's fucking racist.
You know what?
That's fucking racist.
Yeah, I
man.
know why
I
you're
said to
laughing.
him.
That's not cool.
That's
what I
racist,
would say
isn't it,
is, stop going to McDonald's.
That was McDonald's.
No, sorry.
I'm thinking it might be more of a demographic people
Yeah.
in McDonald's. So go to Pret, Starbucks, or something else. I suspect no one's
But that's too
gonna approach-
expensive. Starbucks too expensive, man.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know this, right? This is new narrative to me, right?
This is
But-
new.
Why you never known about that? That things
Well-
like that happen.
well-
You're not from the end.
It does happen. It's happened to me as well.
You've had that as well.
You know what
You've had
happens?
that as
So you at McDonald's?
No.
and-
I used to live in Peckham.
Right.
And this is a long time ago, like 20 years ago.
Right.
And I used to run. And every time I went past this what's it called? This particular place.
Right.
There were some guys outside that were always there.
Right.
I think it was a kind of club. Right.
And
every time that I went past, there would be some remark, not overtly racist, but there would be evening officer.
that one's funny.
Is he at the right? Yes.
So they thought you were undercover Fed.
Yeah.
Right. So and this is the extent of you guys racism.
Well, yeah, come on.
Yeah, it doesn't sound nice.
But would you agree it is racism, though?
Well,
It
it's
is racism.
prejudice, really. I don't know. I don't know if from that you seem to be okay.
Yeah, but no,
you know what I
hold
mean?
on, Raven, because you can be prejudiced against sexuality, gender, and then anything.
Yeah, I
prejudice
agree.
is a general thing.
Yeah.
So, and if I was prejudiced towards you because you're a man, why isn't that sexism? So if I'm prejudiced towards you or him because of their race, why isn't that racism?
Or the colour of my skin. or
Using
something
the
like
term
that.
prejudice doesn't alleviate the specificity.
Me
of it.
personally, I told you that there is a power dynamic that I subscribe to.
No, but I asked you why isn't it racist? Why is it prejudice and not racist?
Well, like I said, in the normal
Why can't it be
in the
both?
normal day-to-day conversation, I can say that's racism. But for me, it says nothing about the dynamics that we're a part of.
No, but
So, for example,
why can't you say
hold on,
that's racism?
That's the thing. Have you ever been stopped by the police because you're white?
Yeah, loads. I've been
Well,
stopped.
he's-
When I was
You already agreed with the
younger,
Jewish
we're gonna
guy
learn.
earlier that racism takes
Why
different
don't-
when I was
Why don't
younger,
you
when I was
fight it?
younger,
Why
I
don't
got
you
stopped and
fight
searched
that?
more than my
let-
black
let-
friends.
let-
I got
no,
stopped and searched
but I
the
want-
most.
no, forget
Because
him.
of my
He said
height.
everything.
Because of my height.
He's already told me.
Yeah.
Don't go to
I'll tell you about the
McDonald's.
police. You want to know about the
Yeah.
police? I can tell you stories, but I'm not even going to tell you on camera the shit that's happened to me. And I can tell you off camera, but if I told you, I'm not going to tell you on camera.
Was it
So I had loads of
was
stuff.
it based upon racism and why the police did what they did?
No, but I think it could be to do with height. To do with height, yeah, I think so. Because
that's a different issue,
they do see vulnerability.
That's
And if they
interesting.
see someone who they think small, something like that. I got stopped and searched, and I had loads of shit. When I was in my 20s with the police and younger, teenager, I'm not going to say on camera the shit happened to me, but loads of stuff. And I got stopped and searched more than any of my friends, and more than my black friends too.
Really?
And I saw actually the police were sometimes more lenient with my black friends over things.
So you think they'll pick on you because of heightism?
Yeah, definitely. There's that comes in. So I know that some people
think that's a good
and
point.
some police and just people in general do use discriminate. Like, a lot of women will be like, look at that short bloke, disgusting, short man.
But
Some women
I'm
are
learning
like,
something.
right,
I've
but
never
some women
noticed-
are discriminating.
Women are heightist.
People discriminate.
noticed that.
That's a
People
good topic
discriminate
to
on
go
things.
into.
Yeah.
But we're talking about like,
And that's
You all
power.
have
That is
felt-
power
Very
and prejudice.
systemic racism.
Power and
Why don't
prejudice.
you fight it?
Power and
Instead of-
prejudice. Says.
Instead
that's
of just
too deep.
being sort of unhappy about it, why don't you fight it? Why don't you do
Ask me
something
how many
about
times I was stopped in search in my 20s and teens.
Organised.
30 odd times.
and it's all,
No problem.
And you first connecting also to heightism.
Yeah, definitely, because the police weren't intimidated by me. If I was a big guy like that,
Now,
big
ask a
tall white
question.
guy.
Were you doing anything that might be?
No, just walking the street. I had loads of stuff like, oh yeah, you match a description of somebody. I said, what are you doing? And when I got older, I learned more and more. So I realised they couldn't just, and then the stop and search, they couldn't do it. So you need to have reasons. So that worked in favour for me.
So-
they couldn't just stop
but
and search
we-
me for no good reasons,
right.
but because they weren't
The only
intimidated
thing
by
is,
me.
friend, you and this if the police are mistreating you because of your height, this is wrong, and we should try to stop them.
I got stories I would never tell you, maybe off camera, but not on
Well, it sounds tragic. But what I would say is, when you came here, you were describing racism that's put upon you,
and you told me every time you go to McDonald's, black people
Not
ask to
every
move
time. I
on.
didn't say that.
A few times.
A couple of times, yeah.
But and I asked you, has the police stopped you for similar reasons as in you being of your ethnicity? And you said no, it's more from my height. So it's a different thing altogether.
Well, I could say ethnicity because I could say being short is runs in my family. So I could say that's a racial characteristic.
I've never ever talked about how heightism can affect racism. So this is the first, yeah. But I think he makes a really good point because, in fact, it relates to what you were talking about with the Jewish guy. I mean, we can't just use this sort of general superstructured narrative to say, oh, this is racist. The truth is, there's many layers and filters, yeah. So, like, if you're from a certain area and you're white, if you're a bad man, you won't experience racism as much as if you're some teacher's pet geek white. Then maybe people will feel more inclined to be racist towards you because of that, because you lack a certain something. And the same with black people. Poor black people suffer far worse forms of racism than those with other levels of economic privilege, for example. I mean, this is a matrix of things, you get me? And that's why it's really interesting that I personally agree with you that heightism might affect...
Definitely, 100% does, bro.
Well, I don't think heightism affects racism, but I think...
It's a form of racism, I think.
If you can agree with how...
I disagree 110%.
Surely we live in a... Stick to the height thing. Different characteristics.
Let me just say.
We should talk about it.
Let me just say.
Let's say with you, if you were poorer, you may feel racism more directly and impactfully.
No, but I'll tell you why it's racism.
Yes,
I'll tell you why.
100%, bro. It's a matrix of socioeconomics and race.
And we live in a society where we can do something about
it.
We live in a society where we can change it.
And so if money changes a black man's position in society so that the racism changes, there's no doubt that a white... Well, let me just finish the analogy. If a white person has a more accepted position in maybe a black community, then naturally he'll...
So change it, so fight it. We live in a society where we can change that.
We agree.
Yeah, we definitely agree with
find
that.
it is definitely a good thing to do.
We definitely agree with that, but I'm just trying to get to the specifics of
and
how
being
we
short
look
and
at
tall,
these
being short and tall can also be a racial characteristic.
It's harder said than done.
It's not skin color isn't the only racial characteristic. Being short or being tall can also be a racial characteristic. The people
money is the biggest one. Money is the biggest one.
Okay, so may I answer both your questions? Statements, I should say. Maybe. Yes, a rich black person and a poor black person, the rich black person has more defense against racism, right? But they're both attacked for the same reason, which is their ethnic background. Yeah. Now, if you're saying that you're because you're shorter, what you have to demonstrate is that the police who approach you, they hate white people, right? And there's two white people, a tall giant, whatever, and a short person like yourself, and they thought, you know what, I want to mistreat white people, but I'm going to go for the easy target.
Most of the time they went for me on my own, not in groups. Most of the time they went for me on my own, like when the police... They haven't done... I haven't had this problem for... I mean, I'm a lot older now, so... But when I was a teenager in 20s, I used to get stopped and searched all the time.
Well,
in the end, you learn you have to learn about the law so you can protect yourself.
I agree with this, but what I'm saying is, I suspect that what you went through, if it was heightism, I don't know. If it was, I'm taking your opinion on that.
I think so.
I don't think
heightism not all the time, but most of the time.
Connected to racism, unless they were like, I dislike white people, I think they're this, that, and the third, and I'm looking for easy targets. There's one outside McDonald's, and he's not as tall as this other gentleman.
But you don't see what I was saying. If this guy was a part of the community, still white, but maybe because he was larger, taller, he had a more dominant position in that community, do you think he would receive racism much as being an easy target? Let's be honest, I mean, it's pretty logical.
So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
If I, as a person, want to mistreat white people, and my police
you go for easy targets.
Yeah, I agree. But you have to demonstrate that. Look, it's because I'm white. First, he hates me, and second of all, it's because he deems me an easy target.
He doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah?
He's proven that height may have contributed to racism. If you're trying to say, it's the same as black, then it has to be like you're saying for black people, the race precludes everything.
Yeah.
Whether they're I'm with you, bro.
Yeah.
So they're different
starting
forms.
point.
They're different forms.
It's a starting point,
right.
and
if he was a short black guy, he might be in even more trouble.
But my original point, why are they both? They're still racism, both of them?
Well, I don't feel the gentleman's demonstrated that the police have targeted him for being a European. And then
because there might be other factors.
Yeah,
there might be the way that you held yourself.
Yeah, I don't think the police went to you because you're white, personally.
Yeah, I don't
but you definitely got bullied.
Definitely, it happened to me way more than all my friends who are taller. Even my black friends, it happened to me way more.
That's a different thing.
That might be sometimes signals that you give out.
No, not really. The only signal is, I'll tell you, if you're a short bloke, if you're a smaller guy, you're gonna.
You don't like the word challenge.
People are gonna be looking to try and exploit you. So you have to be cleverer.
All right, let me ask you then.
Yeah. Oh, don't move. Yeah. Okay.
So a poor black person goes to court, can't afford legal defense,
Right.
he gets charged.
Yep.
Rich black person goes to court, can't afford legal defense,
O.J.
he's
Simpson.
acquitted.
O.J. Simpson.
Right. So far, so good, yeah?
Right, yeah.
Money makes the difference. Rich people have
Money
more
makes difference in the
R.
outcome.
Kelly,
not
R.
income.
Kelly. Yeah.
income, but their income has made a
No,
difference
no,
in
no,
the
no.
outcome.
I'm playing words.
So was I.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, work on it.
So, but anyway, in any case, the richer person has more defense against, in this case,
Yes.
legal proceedings.
The input, the output is different, but the input's the same.
Right. Okay.
And that's what we're going to talk about, the input.
So I don't know where I'm going with this, but
Neither
it
do I.
might
Okay.
make a good discussion.
Yeah.
So okay, now, poor white person goes to court, doesn't have money for legal proceedings, he goes to prison. Rich person goes to court, doesn't have money for legal proceedings, he gets acquitted.
Yeah.
Now I see the exact same outcome and income for both.
Well,
his
the
white
input's different.
privilege?
So the input is, why is he in court? So if he's in,
I haven't told you that.
well, if we're,
You're assuming something there that
Well-
the black people didn't do or something. And the white
well,
people did.
we're
Let's just say all of them. There was 4 people committed crimes.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
well, if what you're saying is correct, this is no longer a race issue; it's an economics issue.
Exactly. So going back to my point earlier, race is often. I'm not going to say often. It depends on how you look at things. But race is not always the reason for things.
It's a factor.
Yeah, I never said
And
it
we
was.
have to be very careful
But-
about
but
when
what's-
it is or
what's
isn't.
interesting,
So
we
you
are
made,
talking about
you
what it
made
is.
Tasmania a point. You
Very
said
good
they were a race because they were black. I mean, come on, isn't this the same thing now? What makes you think that?
Okay, so here's what it is, right? You have an invading force who are
White.
or white,
Right.
And you have the indigenous force who are identified as black.
Yeah,
right.
so there's clearly a racial
Yeah.
aspect to it.
Yeah.
But you're saying that that aspect is not simply an aspect, it's the underlying cause.
the legacy of how people in
Is that what you're saying, though?
the legacy
Just to
of,
be clear?
Well, let me say what I'm saying. The legacy of how people who are identified as black in Australia, or the Australians, whatever, are treated after the fact, right? So today,
Right.
that discrimination still goes on, right? So if that's where they are today, that means the original cause was the same. These are non-white people. We want bits of their land,
Right.
and they're not subscribing to our way of culture. They don't want to be dominated, so we're going to do what we have to do, systematically stop it. And that's what we've seen. That's what we see. So that was a racist concept, right?
Fair enough. Now, sorry you lot, but we're going to go down this route. So forget all the other stuff.
I'm sorry about the heightism.
Now, that's a fair point.
Yes.
But you still haven't proven that race is the reason it happened. Because
Right.
land has exchanged hands
You're right.
or dominated by other people in the
Yeah.
past, right? And now, if you were going to make a competition between people who've suffered the most, it has to be the natives of the American continent.
Well, here's what it is.
No, wait, you're not even listening.
Okay.
You're thinking about what you're going to say before I've said
I
it.
thought you concluded.
No, not yet.
Oh, right.
So
you
if
got
anyone's-
to do it better.
in,
than that,
in, in the old like conquering game
Yeah.
and the fucking genocide game,
Yes.
you know, in the words of
The
Immortal Technique,
oppression Olympics.
yeah.
Genghis Khan used
I
to
don't
boil
I don't
people
like to
alive.
participate in these Olympics, but in the words of Immortal Technique, you know, more people died by the conquistadors in the Americas than died under Hitler or Stalin and potentially
The
slavery.
Mongol hordes. There's actually.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know about that. Yeah, that's
Genghis Khan used to boil people alive.
But the reason I
How
wouldn't
much
use,
did they suffer?
Right. But the reason I wouldn't use that as an example because that's A, quite a long time ago, and B,
Yeah.
that was that was just ravage war. Like we're talking about quite a
Is there a question?
yeah. I know you're in a rush. It's cold. But
No,
I mean,
no, I don't.
It's a
You
complicated
gotta-
point. So the reason I use the Americas as an example because A, it's in the last 500 years, and you can sort of set 500 years for the modern form of imperialism we see now, mostly from Europe taking huge amounts of land. So in that 500 years, the Americas have been suffered terribly. Now, this is my point.
Yes.
The people in Tasmania
Yes.
and the people in the Americas,
Yes.
different ethnicities, different races entirely.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But there is the European thing.
Yes, of course.
Now we could
What you could describe as white supremacy. Go ahead.
could be, could be. Now that's
Which is a
definitely
thing.
a part of it. Definitely
Which is
a
a
part
thing,
of it.
right?
But why now? Like I said earlier, I personally believe that class, as the term we use today, but money in general and power that it brings, is almost always the precluding factor to things. Race is there, but it's an aspect, it's an underlying cause. And I can simply see that in Tasmania, the people weren't weren't victims of genocide because of that. They were victims of genocide because of a larger domination of the world.
the same way the victims of the Native Americans who, I mean, if we're talking about the
You're
Depression
saying
Olympics,
it's a process, the age of discovery, rather than racism. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
I would. But let me just say it the way I want.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
because- No, it's all right.
I'm
Because
white
if-
spraying.
if-
I'm asserting
No,
my
I
white
would never use that word.
supremacy.
Mansplaining. White mansplaining.
Yeah.
No, but
Sorry.
if anyone lost out on the Oppression Olympics, the natives of the Americas are fucked.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no doubt
Yeah,
about it. Yeah,
of course.
And it seems to me that while yes, you can't deny it, these were white European colonial forces who went to every corner of the globe. But isn't it clear that they weren't inspired by anything more than money and land grabbing? This was it. This was the cause of it. Right? You get me? Like, so even though racism may have been a product of it, the cause
Greed.
was something else. Don't you think? Slavery was
Greed.
the exchange of people for greater labor.
Okay, so the system that was that was the
Yeah, you know already. I didn't buy it because of that.
Too much for two.
Oh shit.
Hey, yours is black, yours is white. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Look at his mind is.
Who's this black and who's this white?
My man is black over here. My man's white.
What you should have done is said how much we both paid for it. That's another way of looking at it. Not the
Economic-
black and
how
white.
much-
How
economic-
much we paid. So going back,
How much you paid,
is it
bro?
race or economics?
Did you steal yours? You stole yours. He bought his, right? Wait, reverse. There you go. Anyway, now listen back. So what I was saying is, the system that was made to get land and power, that system is integrated with what we're calling white supremacy. All right?
Integrated.
Yeah.
But let's
it becomes one thing.
I guess my
it's
question
a
was,
philosophy that works very well.
what
Now,
comes first, the chicken or the egg, race or economics?
Egg always comes
Greed.
first.
It's greed.
okay, regardless of what comes first, it's the
Why
system.
did these Spanish people have the largest armada to control the earth?
Money.
Because they hated black people and the natives of the Americas?
Money.
Or was it because of money and trade?
Greed.
Okay, so what I'm saying is,
Race is a byproduct of it. That's what I think.
you know what?
Do you know?
Regardless if it was the first or the second, the fact is the devastation aftermath of it is what we're talking
Don't deny
about.
that.
Yeah, so I can't jump to the historical minds of the people you're describing and go, were they talking about money or domination, right?
But we can. We can.
Why?
'Cause they hadn't even discovered the land.
Here's my answer. When those people have gone to Europe to do the same thing, yeah,
It's taken a different form.
it's taken a different form, and that's my point. As in, like for example, if you look at say Germany in the First World War, right? The UK, the British people, the British army didn't like the German army, and vice versa, right? And they would shoot each other. When the British Empire got people from Africa to fight on their side, they didn't want them to have guns because they said even though
Don't wanna arm them.
even though we dislike the Germans and we're going to kill them ourselves,
They're closer to us.
yeah, it's wrong for you as a black person to kill them.
Right.
Yeah,
they?
yeah, that's
Are you
right.
sure? All of them said that.
So this is what I've
But
studied.
I don't
yeah?
deny that for 1
So,
second.
so what I'm saying is, the good thing is, as I'm
I
speaking,
think the enemy's the enemy, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
you know.
but that's the thing is, you must understand that not everyone thinks like you. Right?
Okay,
And that's-
okay.
Well, you might disagree with that.
Yeah, I've never heard that one. I've heard it before.
Well,
Actually,
today you've learned something.
I've
This
heard
was
it
great about
before,
today.
but I'm not sure. I'm not so convinced that it's quite true.
Well, and you
'Cause
shouldn't.
if you want to get rid of the enemy, that's the enemy, isn't it?
Yes, well, this is the vile nature of white supremacy. This is what we should
Okay,
stomp out.
okay.
So what I'm saying is, within the First World War and the Second World War, this was the same narrative. Also in the Second World War, when they captured the Nazis.
Oh, the
and-
Americans did that. The Americans might be like it, not the British so much, I think.
Okay, once again, we're talking about white supremacy, so they're all inclusive. So what I'm saying is, when they actually captured the Nazi enemies at the time, as they've described, they had to give up their seats when they were transferred by the trains.
That's deep.
And when they were eating in the mess halls, the blacks had to eat in a separate room while the Nazis ate with the
Segregation.
Germans. So what I'm saying is, regardless of what you're saying, this concept of white supremacy is always consistent.
Where can I research that stuff?
I got you,
Wikipedia.
Raven.
There you
I
go.
got you.
That's Wikipedia, you'll find.
Sorry, you're talking about segregation in the American army.
So I'm saying that even when you have Europeans versus Europeans, they still have this idea that, well, we're white. So we're going to fight now, we're going to disagree, but we're going to make up afterwards. But no matter what, these others are others. So case in point, it would be wrong to mistreat a German person today because of the Second World War, right? They're your German brothers. Yeah? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ethnic brothers.
Yeah, your ethnic brothers. So
I
forth.
don't know.
Right,
I don't know.
now, can I address that?
This guy has a distinct uniqueness
I'm not
about
sure.
him.
I'm not sure about that. I'm
Well,
not sure
look,
about that.
I don't deny that for a second, man. Segregate, like, come on. Anyway, but now, this is where we need to carefully untangle the very complex mixture of race and money. Yeah?
Right.
Now, everything you said is true there, in my opinion.
But let me tell you why
Right.
it all favours my point and not so much the race point.
Go ahead.
Now, historically, okay, I have to take a Marxist perspective of this. It's about...
Stop going McDonald's.
hear me
Stop
out.
going.
Yeah. You have to hear me out on this. Now, this is simply it. It's the power that empire and money has brought particular classes. Now, in Europe, the ruling classes were more similar to each other simply because they were the ruling classes.
Right.
Now, if the sort of the nations and armies of countries that are ruled by the elite have the economic power to make things happen, and it still does remain to this day. Yeah.
Yep.
Now they go to a continent, Africa, North America, South America, or the Australian continent. Yeah. What do they find? They find kingdoms. Yeah. They find structures of power, but in a far more primitive sense. And they have no economic power that had allowed them to produce a military might that was enough to dominate people. So my point is,
they did, but they did.
no, they didn't.
In their areas, they did. They had military might to dominate people in their area.
Not in Europe, though.
Please,
I
but
mean,
they-
let's
but
be
they-
honest.
but they
if
won't
just
get you.
develop. The thing is, sorry, there is some. The thing is that if you look at it, when the French army invades part of Germany and they don't annihilate everybody there and take over it. But when they actually took, I think I see what you're saying. When they took parts of Africa and when they took America, it turned out it may not have been intentionally genocide or whatever, but they literally just took over.
Yeah, that's a different point.
Sorry, have I got that wrong?
I think you're spot on. I think
That's a fair
well
point.
needed.
But
A well needed point.
Let me just
Because they could do that to people in Africa, but they felt that they couldn't do that to white Europeans.
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry.
There was more camaraderie.
Fair enough,
There
but
was a more of a team-based effort.
Sure, because of ethnic
And
brotherhood.
that is race, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
Right, but I guess my point is that if you look at this in a socio-economic sense, in a global socio-economic sense, this is once again the rich versus the poor, because these very rich powers, who had extremely developed industries, which allowed them to travel the world and force their dominance. The only reason people were susceptible to these powers is because they didn't have the military
Technology.
might which came from their economic dominance of the world. Right?
Technology as well.
We have to really look at this in a historic. Let me just.
There's
finish the point,
economics
I'm
and
going to get
then
confused.
yeah.
We have to look at this in the historical context, because this is the beginning of multinational capitalism. Yeah.
Okay.
The economic, you could say, the economic might developed here, and it was pushed on everyone here. So in these countries, the rich dominated the poor. Right? We all know that, yeah? In the European tradition, the monarchs and the elites dominated the poor from day one.
Right.
They simply spread that to everywhere else.
But it's different in the colonies. They
Of course,
took it. They took it.
It's undoubtedly.
They threw people off the land, didn't they?
It's undoubtedly
in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, they threw them off the land.
It's
didn't they? And
undoubtedly
that's
different. It's undoubtedly different. But my point is, it's a product of, again, these people have no economic power whatsoever.
I disagree again.
We are going to dominate
I disagree.
them.
I disagree.
And unfortunately,
We're talking about
out of
technology,
that-
not economic power. Because
what are we talking about? We're talking about the same. Technology
go
is
to-
economic power.
Okay, if you go to
sorry,
foreign
look. I have to quote something. You have to look at a book called Guns, Germs and Steel. Guns, Germs and Steel. It's a good book, and it shows why Europeans were able to dominate the world, because they had developed at very fast rates. They had developed
Technology.
huge jumps. But
Technology,
you get me?
what are you
And,
saying?
and I guess white supremacists would you that say we are naturally supreme to rule over the globe. I'm simply saying it was a historical event which allowed them to dominate. The rich were allowed to dominate the world's poor, and it continues to this day. Racism is a byproduct of that, there's no doubt, but I think it's easy to see that the underlying cause and drive was more and more money and more economic domination. Resources, etc. Remember, and black people became resource.
Right.
They became resource.
Right.
They weren't resource because they were black. They became resource because they
They're
had
labour.
No,
Labour.
bro.
Regardless
That's
of
my belief.
Regardless of why a narrative was written, the fact it was written and it was executed, right? So the unification between European nations when it came to domination, was something we could observe, and it
But
was
these are
consistent.
ruling elites.
Right. But the difference is within these European nations, you will have the ruling elites and then those who are beneath them, right?
And they were dominated in some form.
Yes, but then when it came to going to other nations, those dominated forms there still had hierarchy above the dominated nations they went to.
Because naturally they're different. The poor of one country are not the same as the poor of another.
That's my point.
It's not because of race though, it's because of a different socio-economic circumstance.
When you talk about this white dynamic, white supremacy, right, you are talking about a new concept that is defined as race or racism, right?
Sure.
So regardless of the motivation behind it, it's a reality, and that's what we're seeing.
No doubt about it.
So even if they said, you know what, actually what we want is gold, and how we're going to achieve it is by separating people by race, right? It doesn't matter, because the outcome is so devastating, we have to take it serious.
Yeah, we always agree on that.
So that's what it is.
But I thought we were still connected to the initial point about the little English guy, about whether his height influenced the racism or it was genuine racism. I thought that's where we came from. And so my point...
Yeah, and I disagree 100% with the fact that he was being mistreated because he was white, and the reason they went to him is because he wasn't as tall as the police officer.
I think that as well.
Yeah, but I strongly disagree with that.
I extend it to the whole world because it really is. I mean, you can use race to describe many events, but the one mechanism which always describes events is the socio-economic one. For any sense of domination, you can always find the reason in socio-economic terms. You can't always find it in racial terms.
Yeah,
and that's why if I would ever use a superstructure, it would be the socio-economic one.
So when you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, in America,
right,
and you had like the blacks who were segregated, and they started their own economic base, doing very well for themselves in isolation. It couldn't compete with the greater European nations, right? But it was enough to sustain their own lifestyle. The only motivation for blowing that up was that these were black people.
Why?
They became a threat.
Go ahead. Hearing that,
go ahead.
Surely you can come to either conclusion. This is race or class. But can't you see how this is? You've given the greatest example for class because they didn't have enough money as much as the dominators. Isn't that clearly the reason?
No, that's not how it works.
Tell me why. You said they didn't have as much.
No, they were smashed up.
Remember,
they were smashed up deliberately.
So let me just explain one thing.
Yeah, please do.
We're going back to the 20s and 30s, Black Wall Street kind of thing. Yeah. Now, this is a great example of what I'm saying because this is really the start of global market. Now, you can't just create Black Wall Street and act like it's going to run separately from the main Wall Street. That's competition. They're stealing labor or consumer power.
You're incorrect.
So why wouldn't there be in competition economically?
But you weren't allowed bank accounts.
Try to answer that question. Why wouldn't they be in competition economically?
So in those times, many white people they'll do what you call white flight. They didn't want to be around African people, right?
Happens to this day, in fact.
And because of the history...
Well, hold on, no.
Well,
you have to unpack that.
I am speaking, but...
You can't just say that. You know, white flight was much more complex than that.
Well, either or.
People left the communities because there's no money in the communities anymore.
Okay, let's break down. Generally, people of European descent didn't want to be around people of African descent unless they were being dominated in slavery. When slavery was around, it was okay for them to be making the tea, making the outside thing. But as soon as that went, allegedly that went, then there was an issue with them being around.
I don't want to cut you off. Can I say one
you are
thing?
going to, aren't you?
I know.
Go ahead.
I know. Hope you can allow me that.
Go ahead.
White flight is much more complex than what you just said.
Okay, everything is much more complex than what we're doing.
No, but for the sake of this argument, which is about race and class, white flight also had a racial and economic dimension. Right?
Well, this whole thing
we have to be open.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, as a general consensus, people of European descent at that time didn't want to be in neighborhoods around black people, right?
There was that.
Okay, yes. Well, so if you didn't know
Isn't
that
universal though? Isn't that the same in all communities?
No,
people like to be with their own kind.
Let's not get stuck on white
flight.
Okay,
we can.
There was an economic dimension.
So I'm going to go to the next phase now.
About going to nicer places.
So what happened is, because they didn't want to, black people created an economic base for themselves, right? A city or a trading city where they can just focus on themselves. It was no threat to anyone else because it was small, but it was self-sufficient.
Right.
It couldn't compete with America as a whole, right?
Sure. Good.
The only reason it was bombed is because racist white supremacists didn't like the fact that people who they were seeing who were subjugated were actually doing something constructive for themselves, and there was an automatic hate started from there.
Right.
So this was not to do with economic power or anything like that, because they had no economic
power.
power.
But you haven't proven why that was. You were telling me that this is what happened.
Well, we have testimony.
It's a well-known fact.
It's a well-known fact.
No, but hold on. You can't just say
it's
a well-known fact.
These properties were bulldozed.
So these people went out of their
These properties were bulldozed.
just because of racist tendencies.
100%. 110% with a 10% error margin.
May I present my
You
argument.
can present quite a lot, but go ahead.
Now, we can take the Black Wall Street as an example. We can take any example.
No, let's use the Black Wall Street.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to say is a universal thing, right? If any small exclusive market pops up, now okay, let's analyze Black Wall Street. What was it? It was a trading center for black businesses to get black consumers. It was like a self-sufficient
Well,
market.
let's unpack that better. Like you say,
Let's unpack
it was
that.
that.
Tell me
It
what
was.
it was.
It was basically black people couldn't get economic progression
Mortgages.
anywhere.
They couldn't get loans.
Anything,
Yeah.
right?
Any service or
So-
good, right?
So they were
Right.
forced
to make their own.
to
set up their own.
enough.
So
Yeah.
that's a better explanation.
And let's say I was one of those in Black Wall Street. I'm like, I'm black. I'm gonna start up I don't know, like a mortgage bank. Yeah. And I'm not going to be appealing to white consumers. I'm going to be appealing because they've already got their shit. I'm going to be appealing to people.
It wasn't even a conversation. It's like we have nothing. We're going to build it. Now with black people,
Yeah, I know,
as
but
you
I'm
can see-
unpacking that.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I'm unpacking that. Yeah. So I'm offering a service which was previously unavailable to my black neighborhood. Right. So and out of that became very successful and it became Black Wall Street. Self-sufficient, mostly. I'm sure that there might have been some trade with white, I don't know, but it was mostly self-sufficient in the black community.
Right.
Now, this is what. Now we can make modern day comparisons to maybe even rap, bro. And, let me unpack that.
Okay.
Now I can see why you would say that white people saw that and thought, man,
Racist white people.
Racist white people in dominant positions of economic
No,
power.
not just
No,
dominant
because let's be the poor white peasant couldn't do shit to Black
Well,
Wall Street.
because they're-
it's about people who are above Black
No,
Wall
no,
Street.
no,
That's
no,
what we're talking about.
no.
White people,
You're incorrect.
racist white people with economic power.
You're incorrect.
But according to your
Well,
theory, we're all
okay,
right.
can I
We're
just
all
make my
racist,
point?
aren't we?
Because
I've never said this. I don't know.
But by inference, surely.
I don't know who said this, but it wasn't. What I'm saying is the Klansmen have different dynamics of wealth, right? And they
Sure,
will
okay,
they will
good
click
point.
together.
Right.
Some will call them poor white trash and stuff. I won't use such words, but
there was politicians who were in the KKK. I mean, they weren't
that's
all
you-
poor.
you said-
the
okay, you said
individual black.
Hello. What unified the poor whites and the rich whites was the hatred for black people and black progress.
Sure,
Go ahead.
sure, but
Well, that's a big sure.
But my point-
That's a very big sure, isn't it?
no, look, we're in agreement
Yes.
on that. We're not making it. There's no disagreement there. But my point is that if anyone went out with a concerted effort to bring down Black Wall Street, it was powerful white people, not the inconsequential white
I disagree
cleaner.
100% with this statement. Go ahead.
Good. You agree with the statement?
No,
Why?
I disagree.
Why?
I disagree 100%.
Well,
Why?
bro,
Why?
I mean, it's
Because-
I'm going to leave that one because I think
Can
that's really clear to
Can you
see.
explain why? Because that's a strong right. If you
Yeah,
say
bro.
something,
But no,
I disagree.
We're going to lose the main thread of the argument if we don't go along with this.
Well,
yeah?
why I disagree? Go ahead.
Fine, whatever. But anyway, so
So
you
the-
said
so the crux
racist
is
white people.
that rich or poor people in that time were discriminating against black people in Wall Street. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. That's not even central to the point anyway.
That is the point. Go ahead.
No, it wasn't.
yeah,
No,
I
it
think
is.
it's the point. Yeah.
We're
really is the
getting
point.
very far away from the original point, actually.
What about the short
So-
faced McDonald's guy? Go ahead.
That was the original point. So, so Black Wall Street created a self-sufficient, mostly among black people, market and loads of industries, right? And you said racist white people saw this and they wanted
Of all economic backgrounds.
Right. Now, from the perspective of white Wall Street or white industry, what did they see?
A threat, competition.
Possibly.
No.
Well, no, but I'm not.
There was no competition.
Right, but that's not my
It
point.
was
That's his
wanted
point.
to see.
I'm throwing the idea up.
Listen, when slavery was around, the white supremacists wanted they would never call the black people black men. They called them boys, right?
Right.
Yeah. There was this psychology behind like always wanted to be dominant, right? So even though there were the Wall Street which was very good for a black standard, but compared to America,
Yeah, I know that.
So the only reason to blow it up was because they wanted to keep domination, wanted to keep people in a subservient place.
That's your
hatred of
opinion,
those
which you
people.
haven't validated
I've
yet. Because you can
just
say-
gave you the boy analogy about
Bro, these aren't proofs.
no slave could call himself a man.
I get you.
Himself a boy.
Look,
Why is that even important? Why, if I'm a slave, or an enslaved person, I should
hear
say,
that, I hear
why am I not allowed to call myself a man? Why do I have to be referred to as
I
a
hear
boy?
that, I hear
Because of power domination.
Sure.
Because it's a psychology. It's wanted to seem dominant. right?
Infantilize.
Now you remember there was a time where
Read
yes,
that, I hear
so yeah,
that.
you have your rich power elite from the European class, right? But you also had your poor class, right? And there was a time where the poor blacks and the white blacks came together in America, right? But then what was said, and Francis Cress Wellington explains this very well, is they would say, okay, you might be poor, but you're poor and white, and that means a poor and white person is always going to be supreme to a poor black person and a rich black person, right? Because your whiteness is what you take to the bank, right? So this is what I'm saying, that it isn't necessarily 100% down to economics.
No, it isn't. And
really
no one said that.
White supremacy as a religion, a concept, an idea.
So it's not 100% about economics, but are you saying it's 100% about race?
Well, the world,
We both agree
pun
it's
intended, the
tangled,
world isn't
isn't
as
it?
black and white as that.
I know,
Do you know what I mean?
and
So
so
I can
I'm
tell
trying
you.
to present the argument where, in my opinion, many of these things which are often attributed entirely to race often have underlying economic factors. And with the Black Wall Street thing, if they show that they look, I'll give you a great analogy.
Please do.
If these black businesses and service providers suddenly became efficient and profitable, this is the word we're looking for. These people are making money.
So you're
They're
talking about
making money, right?
You're talking about what ifs, right?
No, this happened. These people are making money.
More than America, yeah?
But let me just finish the point. Bro, this is Speaker's Corner, you know. I fucked your mum. That's the debate.
This is not Speaker's Corner. This is not Speaker's Corner. Go ahead.
That's my bad, yeah. So, think about this. Look, Black Wall Street was an achievement. You can't downgrade it. You can't downplay its achievement.
Never have.
Good, yeah, that's my point. The reason it's noteworthy and worthy of mention is because it was successful. And
The reason we mentioned it because white people, white supremacists saw it and they wanted to destroy
yeah,
it.
he
because,
keeps saying that, but I'm trying to
Well,
say
it's true.
that it became profitable. Now, let me give you examples. Let's say in a lot of colonial cases, yeah.
His point, you know,
Say that again.
like the profitability of Black Wall Street doesn't necessarily detract from his point.
Because I haven't
It's
finished the point.
profitability.
Come in, bro. Come in. We're scared. Come in. What's wrong?
I haven't been listening. I haven't been listening for long enough. I just
No, but you can still stand it because you got the point. Yeah, start the camera. Yeah. See, we're very inclusive here. Go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's build that wall.
let me just finish that point. If you look at multiple instances in colonial history, it wasn't simply this aimless.
Every time you speak, you keep on stepping back.
What? You can't hear me?
Like, you keep on stepping away from the camera. That's kind of have to keep on keeping
Oh, my bad.
That's
Sorry.
a fidget.
Yeah, you got.
It's a bad habit.
It's the Pharrell Williams. They got me
It's in life.
active.
You always
No.
take steps back in life.
Sorry. All right. I won't. But argumentatively, I won't step back. Yeah? So, you can easily find. This is no debate. You can easily find multiple instances of colonial land grabbing, colonial dominance. Not because it was this aimless sort of zombified drive for white people to control non-white people, but it was to take over native industries. One of the greatest examples of this is India. India had the world-dominating textiles manufacturing industry on earth. Britain came and dominated it and they took it over. Do you think they took it over because they wanted to rule Indian people? They took it over because there was millions and millions. And that's why Britain's in a great position that it is today.
So he's jumping over.
No, I'm not. Now,
18th century. 18th century. He's talking about the 1780s.
Now, so that's one.
I seriously doubt that. I mean,
No, that
the
happened.
Indians
That-
weren't industrialized. Were they?
No,
They weren't industrialised.
he's talking about growing cotton.
Okay, grown. Just
Everybody
grown.
who's
Okay.
watching this
Before America.
No. Silk.
Google Black Wall Street and see if anything the gentleman was talking about correlates.
No, but that's unfair. Man.
Very
I haven't even finished my point. So, like I was saying, there's multiple instances in when the motivation to dominate and colonialize is to take the profit potential there. Now, if Black Wall Street independently created a profitable industry, why would
Amongst itself.
that get taken? Bro, but that can easily get robbed. That's that.
All right, so
you lot have developed a way of selling mortgages to black people. We're going to take that and now we're going to sell them. And why not?
This is not what happened.
Why not? Why? Isn't it?
No, this is definitely not what happened.
So how?
It was completely bombed and destroyed. It wasn't trying to take over legally. I'm going to take your land. I'm going to take your shops. It was, we're going to blow this up. That's what happened.
Bulldozed, doesn't it?
Well, it was blown. It was TNT blown. They even had airplanes
Where'd the
dropping
money
TNT.
go?
Well, it was destroyed.
Oh, come on, man.
No, it was. It was. That's just- no, that is established.
How does money get destroyed? How does the industry get
It was
destroyed?
bulldozed. It was rubble.
Where's the bro? There's
There are
money.
houses,
Where's it going?
and then they're blown up.
Oh, come on, bro.
So the trading of those houses are no longer able to
Houses.
happen.
So there's
The people no longer have houses,
already-
they don't
we've
have
already
work,
agreed that-
they don't have infrastructure. So whatever money's there, or could have been there, is gone. What I'm saying is, here's what we're trying to say, that
Where'd the money go?
racism
Where'd the
was
money?
one of the primal factors of why Black Wall Street was blown up, right? It is what was declared by the white supremacists, right? But this brother has heard something else, and he's now talking about India and so forth, but he's giving an example of why he believes Black Wall Street was blown up, and for him, it was 100% economics.
Where'd the money go?
I wish I knew. It wasn't in the black community.
Do you see what I'm saying?
It was
the
on
money
black
went
community.
somewhere, bro. It's a robbery, if anything.
Right. So remember what we're saying.
You know, but there's so many examples of this.
Right.
Where
So what we've said is
non-white
that
people
black
have been
people were
dominated,
pushed
but
away.
their industries have
Black
been
people
robbed
pushed
from
away.
them.
They'll say, we don't want to live with you, live on your own, right? We don't want to give you jobs, go away. We don't give you houses. So black people were forced to make their own. With the little they made, it couldn't compete with any other industry, but it was self-sufficient.
It was lucrative, though.
Within its own community, but it couldn't compete with the wider nation of America's trading, right? Now, the only motivation we see was that historically white supremacists are offended when non-white people are doing constructive
I don't
wealth
think
for
you've
themselves.
proven how that was the motivation, though.
Well, apart from their own testimony, yeah.
No, but come on. Testimony of who? The white people?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
All of them. Where'd the money go? They tell you, oh, we burnt down the houses, yeah?
Of course.
Really?
Okay, let me demonstrate, because he might know, Darren, right?
I don't know.
He might not know,
didn't
right?
know this, bro.
In America at a certain time, you will have white supremacists go, capture black people who they think have done a crime, lynch them, make a postcard, and send that postcard with the lynched body to their grandma. And they will put it on their wall.
What's that got to do with what I'm saying?
Well, it's got everything to do with what you're saying. I'm telling you that people do things out of hate. You're saying it's all economic driven. And
I never.
about money.
No, but
I'm saying
look,
pure
Ray,
hate.
let's keep it real. I never
I'm
said
keeping
it was
very
all
real.
economic driven. Yeah, I made very clear it's not all economically driven.
Right.
I said it's a mixture of race and class.
Yeah, of course. I'm not going to disagree.
So
with that.
I'm not.
But I'm
don't
saying
act like I'm
that
trying
the
to ignore
motivation.
race.
Okay, the motivation behind Black Wall Street.
You think I would
was
deny that
hatred.
people were lynched?
Okay.
You need to, because
No.
you try to get me in there. I never
that
said
was a side
bro.
analogy to prove
You know
that
what I'm
people.
saying?
It was a side analogy to prove that people can mistreat people just because of where they are. the
In
way they
that
look.
case,
And-
that's certainly
and
a case
the
when that
lynching was
happened.
not profitable. There was no profit to be
Sure.
made in lynching.
Sure.
Maybe you know of it, but I don't know.
Okay,
right?
well, taking that analogy, don't you think people can be economically lynched?
I don't know where this guy's going. It sounds interesting, right? But you're flipping and flopping, right? We are trying.
How am I flipping?
We are describing.
Don't you think that people can be economically lynched?
We are describing.
These lot got businesses.
Right.
Let's go take them from them.
Okay. We are
Let
describing.
me ask you something. Was Black Wall Street closed to selling to white consumers?
No.
No? Isn't that a threat to white markets?
No, this is not the threat.
Oh, it isn't a threat.
It's not the threat.
Don't you see where
Like
I'm
I said,
coming from now?
like I said, this
so
is a
these black businesses
self-sustaining-
are starting to
this is
show
a
that white people might want to consume
well,
their goods.
This is a self-sustaining
See what I'm saying?
business, right? Self-sustaining business, yeah?
But you already said that they're
was
not
blown
closed.
up.
They're not closed to white
reasons
markets.
of hate. No.
They weren't, right?
Black Wall
So
Street-
white people, white markets...
Black Wall Street could not compete with the American economy.
White markets
It
were
could not.
closed to black consumers, but black markets were not closed to white consumers. Do you not see how that's a natural threat to the white markets?
No.
Why?
No.
Isn't that clear?
The narrative was very clear, yeah? There are people who are doing financially, economically well, yeah? We don't like them. We don't like them phenotypically. We like to stay in a
How
power
did you say that?
dominance.
I get
Yes,
that.
power dominance could manifest in economics, fair
Yes,
enough, right?
yes.
Yeah?
But did you
what
see-
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
the original
Good, we're getting
front starting point is, I don't like black people, so I don't want them to be economically sufficient and economically powerful,
Yes.
because they are black.
And even though I've given you multiple examples of when this has been done to basically everyone on earth, you're saying that, but when it comes to black people, it's a race thing. Everyone else, it's mostly economics.
I cannot
even
speak.
though you can't speak for the others, but you can
You keep referring to all these people groups. I can't speak.
No, because it's a
We are-
general trend of
we are
imperialism and
hold on,
colonialism,
We're talking
isn't
about very specific things.
And you're saying
yeah?
specifically this one has a different...
Specifically,
different reason.
racism was a big part of why Black Wall Street was bombed.
There's no doubt about it.
And that's the moral
No doubt
of the
about
story.
it. And you're not willing to concede that any influence was because of economics.
At a certain point,
See,
these
I'm
things
willing to
become
say it's both
intertwined.
race and class. You're not willing to say that.
I've just said it. At a certain point, these things become intertwined, right?
Very
For
complex.
example,
Yeah, they're
I
very
don't like you
complicated.
because you're of African descent. Therefore, meaning to see you do economically good offends me. There's the economics. I'm now going to blow you up.
I can see how
There
that
you
would
go.
happen.
That's how it's intertwined.
I can definitely
There's the
see-
science. You see?
Yeah,
There you go.
I can definitely see how that would happen.
Right.
But I can also see how, wow, this guy is sort of making more money than me. Oh, wait, and he's black. It can go both ways. One can precede one, and the other can precede the other. We gotta be like, it's a very. You get me? We need to be open about. But you see what I'm saying?
No,
we need
because
to be
what
open
I-
how
what I-
there's different
what I-
influences sometimes,
what I see,
and it
yeah.
might not be so easy for you to easily say it's this or that. I'm with you, bro.
What I would
I
say
am
is-
because we
No.
both say it's both.
You are agreeing.
No.
though.
Yeah, exactly.
what I would say is maybe if they were of the same race, they may be more inclined to try and go into business with each other.
It's what we have seen. It's what we have seen. So when you see the Italians, the Irish, the English, and the Welsh and so forth in America, at a certain point, you are no longer describing those backgrounds. You're describing European trading, right?
Sure.
And at no point is the Irish trying to block the Italian, is trying to block the English. It's like this is white pounds or dollars being exchanged, right?
Don't deny that.
Well, this is the dynamic of racism we're talking about.
We were talking about Black Wall Street, which isn't that what you were just saying. I mean, it's a complex subject, and there's no real like.
Every subject is a complex subject.
This is particularly complex because right now in the world we have a very strong narrative where people blame everything for either money or race or gender. Like some people, really gender the world, and I don't see it as that simple.
Well,
right?
it might be. Gender might play an issue in oppression.
But we both don't think it's that, and that's a very simple-minded thing to think. That the whole world is in its current shape because of one thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's why this conversation is really fruitful because we can see how complex the entanglement really is.
But as speakers, we reserve the right to talk about the individual things that affect people. So if sexism is affecting a particular people group, we discuss that. But obviously, it's not going to be 100%. For example, if you talk about sexism, well, that could also bleed into racism, because when there was the feminist movements, the African American or the African-based feminists wasn't necessarily treated the same way.
100%. And
so
to this day,
once again, there you go. That's how racism.
There's no doubt about it. But by the same token, I don't know where that guy's gone now. Maybe heightism can produce race.
Okay, so the reason we're here, right, because there was a gentleman who used to go to McDonald's a lot, and every time he went to McDonald's, he was mistreated by black people for some reason, right? So we told him not to go to McDonald's, but he was saying, we asked, okay, have you ever been institutionalized in racism? Have you ever been mistreated by the police? And the brother said yes, and we said, was it because of your race? He says, no, it's because of my height, but my height and my race are linked, and we were trying to work that out, but then he had to go. So that's why, and then we started talking about Black Wall Street, right? So it's a shame he's gone. So we can unpack if height and racism. But if you want to talk about heightism, I'm more than happy. I'm not exactly 6'2".
I don't suffer from it that much anymore, but I used to be short.
What? As a child or as a man?
Yeah, I had a late puberty growth spurt. So now I'm 5'10"?
I don't know. Maybe.
Taller than you.
You are.
But I used to be shorter.
Okay.
Anyway.
So you haven't gone through heightism?
No. Look, heightism is not my forte. But
you told me you were quite offended by women who were heightist to you or something.
No, he said.
You said.
He said that. I was like, yeah, I've seen it.
You agree with him? You agree with that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Women mistreat you because you're
You ever been on Tinder? It's like no men under 5'11" and shit. It's deep. I feel sorry for short men, honestly. But no, going back to the economics thing.
I think go for short women, but go ahead.
Could do, yeah. I think it's just so important to if you follow the money, it usually presents a more you can trace the evidence back to why actions were made. You can do that with race, but since race is sometimes intangible because it's in attitudes, it's in perspectives.
You can't measure it. You can't measure it.
Not, yeah, I guess you could say it's not measurable. It's something psychological. So while it is a factor, it's not always pinpointed as accurately as money is.
But you can look at behavioural patterns. And the perfect example is in the First World War, like I said before, Germans hated English. They both identified as white. They shot each other. And when England had African soldiers and Caribbean soldiers, the English told them you cannot have guns because it's wrong for a black person to shoot a white person.
I agree.
So you can go by that narrative and go, okay, we can track that.
Yeah, but I know you. Do you want to leave?
No? Okay. What? Would you want me to leave?
No, because I thought you were about to walk away. No, because
that's good.
Walk away. The thing is, you can do a lot with behavioural trends, right? But this is the problem. Behavioural trends exist. You're right. They are measurable. We can look at sort of culture of the time, society of the time, and measure the feelings of the time. Yeah. But the problem with that is that if you look at behavioural trends only through a racial lens, then naturally you'll get what you're looking for. You can look at again. You can look at behavioural trends economically.
I go by testimony.
So
behavioural trends are very important.
Even that, man, like you could read anything that might seem to favour race, also in the economic sense. And feminists now surprise me sometimes in their readings of history because they can look at things in a gender way which I've never even thought of as a man.
Give me an example.
Can't even think of one.
That's a shame.
But I'm sure you've talked to feminists and
I'm not like anti-feminist. Like, I believe women have a claim of sexism.
Sure.
I do believe that there is.
Imagine they presented to you, did you know that slavery was
No, actually, I don't want to say anything that they haven't said, but
Yeah.
if they presented to you an example where you've never really considered how sexuality might have been the precluding reason for whatever, you might think, well, you'll see it as a bit, well, what about race? You get me? And that's what I'm doing to you, but what about
okay, let me unpack something. I forgot that guy's name. There's an Asian guy in America who shot up a school. I forgot his name, I'm bad.
I seen that guy.
Yeah?
He killed a lot of people.
He did, right?
Incel,
Now,
yeah.
what's his name?
No, he was an incel.
He was an incel.
Yeah.
I only found out what that meant a couple of days ago.
That's a deep term.
Yeah, right. Well, the thing is though, what they were unpacking, right? What they were unpacking was that. What they were unpacking was this, yeah.
That's deep.
He was very hurt. He was very hurt that European women that he fancied was having sexual relations with black men, right?
Say that again. Wait, say
European women who he fancied were having
the Asian guy liked white women
of course.
who liked black men.
He had a European partner, father. So he had
he's mixed.
He did, yeah.
Right.
Well,
Get into the issue now.
But he was upset that the blonde women were making love to the bigger black men and not him as
He felt inadequate.
He felt he was more pure, right? But this testimony was never brought forward when it comes to identifying why did he shoot up the school. And for us, race played a very big part in what motivated him for his hatred for the Europeans and that. But
Who did he kill?
Well, everyone in the school.
Right.
Which obviously his school was all European.
It could be a factor.
Well, I would say it was.
Race
in his testimony.
almost always is a factor. I guess the debate is how big of a factor. And I guess the colour of your skin may make you think factors are bigger or larger.
But when we look at Black Wall Street, I think it's quite clear that racism was a factor.
It definitely was.
Yeah. And that's
the fact that it's called. Okay, look. By definition.
No.
By definition, Black Wall Street.
I'll come and get you in it. I'll come and get you.
By definition, Black Wall Street. Black, yeah. It's black. There's a racial factor.
Yeah.
Wall Street, economic factor.
Right.
I mean, it's in the word.
Right. But there you go. But Black Wall Street was called Black Wall Street because anything that black people did, they put black on the floor. That's how it was.
It was a good conversation nonetheless. You get me? And
fair enough.
We can look at any instance in history, and we can exclusively only look at the racial aspect, or we can exclusively look at or we can do both.
Yeah. So I guess the conclusion is, if you're of European descent, do not shop at McDonald's, right?
Where's he at? Where's he at? Not in Brixton.
That's the only thing I've learned from that. So far, but I'm going to kick you. I'm going to go.
It's a good conversation, guys. See you later.
Come take over everything from your God, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Leon, are you ready? You're live. Record. You stopped or you're live? Oh, you go right. Yeah. All right. My name's Eco Dave. This is Jedi. Yeah, we're gonna have a little talk about education, and the angle we'd like to talk about is that the curriculum and the material they're teaching in school, is it authentic? In some respects, they may be actually what they're actually teaching the kids may not be. Facts